Hey everybody, happy Friday. Hopefully everybody is ending out the week on a positive and productive footing. It's me, JJ, here with ASUS again, and we're getting ready to kick off another PCDIY live stream and be able to talk to you guys about everything that's been going on with ASUS over the last week, including some new product announcements, of course, firmware announcements for those of you interested in terms of UEFI firmware releases, as well as we're bringing back the PCDIY Builder Spotlight after a little bit of a hiatus due to so many different product launches over the last couple of weeks. We have gone ahead and held off on that, but I'm happy to go ahead and kick off the PCDIY Builder Spotlight with some absolutely fantastic builds that we have for you guys, ranging from some really cool kind of customized mods to some absolutely stunning water-cooled builds that are going to be featuring some of our latest boards under the Z690 series. But we've got a really nice mix and really excited to be able to show you guys those builds off. So as always, thanks for everybody who's joining us here on the stream. Hey, Ian. Happy to have you here on the stream, man. So thanks so much for joining us. So if you guys are checking us out on Twitter, checking us out on YouTube, checking us out on Facebook, wherever it might be, thanks so much for joining us here for the ASUS PCDIY show. So let's go ready and kick things off here. Oh, awesome, Ian. Fantastic to know that you've got an ROG Strix system. Whether it's going to be a laptop or a desktop, or hopefully maybe if it's a DIY system, like what we cover on here, it's good to know that you've got a system, man. Best of luck with your build. Hey, Richard, happy to have you here on the stream again. Thanks for showing up again as well. All right, guys. So first things first, I just want to go ahead and touch on just some general items in terms of UEFI BIOS releases. So for those of you that are not essentially aware, I do try to recap essentially different types of UEFI releases that we have. So this is essentially going to be the firmware for your motherboard, so both Intel and AMD-based platforms. I haven't gone ahead yet and posted the update in our PCDIY group, which is where you can go ahead and see this information. But if you're interested in checking out the range of boards that have gone ahead and received a release within the last about 7 to 10 days or so, then make sure to go ahead and check out the PCDIY Facebook group, and you can go ahead and check out the announcement post. For the most part, the majority of the boards that are updated here are going to be in the B series chipsets, as well as there are some updates for X99 based users. But overall, none of these are what I'd say be a critical release. They're generally referred to as kind of maintenance releases, maybe helping improve overall interoperability or compatibility, or maybe specific points of functionality. For the most part, pretty much the rule of thumb for firmware, and specifically for UEFI BIOS releases, is if your system's running stable, reliable, without any issues, I recommend staying on the same release that you're running. The main reason being, especially if you're running an overclocked platform, is because we can make changes in what are called the auto rules. The auto rules are kind of underlying parameters in terms of the way that the motherboard operates, and these auto rules can be kind of tuned and kind of programmed in a different way that can actually cause your overclock, which might have been maybe potentially stable, to actually no longer be stable. It doesn't mean that you can't essentially reach the same results. Maybe you might even get better results, but it might actually require you to go back and retune the overclock. So this is always why I do recommend that essentially if your system's running without any issues, make sure and just stay on the release that you're currently running. The only exception to this is for those of you that are looking to still maybe kind of move over from Windows 10 to Windows 11, it would be recommended to download the latest UEFI releases that we have for a wide range of motherboards that officially implements Windows 11 support. So hopefully that covers you guys there in terms of those UEFI releases. Hey, happy Friday, man. Thanks for joining us here on the stream. Hey, Erica, thanks for joining the stream. Thanks for letting me know the audio is sounding good. Hopefully you're doing good as well. Oh, awesome, man. Dalton, that's really great. Yeah, the ROG X AXE 11000, that's one of our ROG Rapture series routers. That's an absolutely just super awesome router, really high end in terms of the performance. For some of you that might be wondering about, the really cool thing about the router that Dalton has right here is the AXE 11000. It features Wi-Fi 6E technology support. So of course, like some of our latest generation series motherboards that feature Wi-Fi 6E, there's essentially even a higher speed band that allows for an ultra high level of throughput for speed and really low latency performance. The one catch-22 that you do want to keep in mind, though, for Wi-Fi 6E support is that outside of having to have a router that supports it, as well as a motherboard or corresponding device, you do also have to be running Windows 11 to actually enable Wi-Fi 6E support. Windows 10 does not support Wi-Fi 6E. Windows 10 will max out at support for Wi-Fi 6. Both are going to be super fast and give you a great experience when it comes to wireless connectivity. But if you want to get the most out of Wi-Fi 6E, then you will need to migrate over to Windows 11. Hey, Chance. Thanks for that feedback. Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, the cost when you talk about something like the Extreme Glacial, it's a really high end product. The actual amount of time that it takes to not only design and develop but even produce it, it literally takes multiple hours to actually go through the actual machining process to be able to produce one single block, then test it, and everything along with those. It's not a general consumer product. It was really designed for enthusiasts that really want that ultra high level of kind of performance and feature set. And that's the reason why it's reserved for a board like the Glacial series. For users that are more interested in, I'd say, generalized high-end water cooling, that's the reason why we've got boards like I have my Hero over here. I thought I had a Hero board here somewhere, but that's why we have the Hero. The Hero is really a great foundational motherboard. It's the entry into the Maximus series line, but there's definitely nothing entry about that board. That board, you can get a mono block from partners like EK, which would cover the CPU and the VRM and be able to give you an outstanding water cooled experience. And of course, even if you want to go a little bit higher end, then you can have boards like the Formula, which then will also offer essentially an integrated VRM water block, and then you could complement that with a CPU block. So we do have definitely a number of different options to be able to facilitate, where you want to approach water cooling from, respective to your budget. Hey, Evan. Yeah, definitely. Evan makes a great point here as far as that. If you guys are not aware, essentially on our latest generation series motherboards for Z690, they do feature dual mounting holes. If you guys want to see that, or if you're interested, let me know. I can show you a close up. It's pretty straightforward. Actually, I think I've got a prime board right here. So let me see. I can show you guys what Evan's talking about here. Give me a second to just move this over here. But for those of you that are interested in essentially upgrading to a 12th gen platform, there are essentially going to be coolers, right? Which ideally you would need to have a 1700 bracket. But what we've gone ahead and done is you'll actually see right here, these mounting holes. We actually have 2 sets of mounting holes on our motherboard. So this is the Prime Z690-A, but this would apply for pretty much any of the ATX boards within our lineup. There's 2 mounting holes. So one is 1700, one's 1200. So you can use your 1200 base coolers. Ideally, though, for the best optimal contact and distribution, if possible, you do want to request a 1700 bracket from your cooler manufacturer. And I will tell you guys on ASUS's side, if you are interested, we will actually be working to supply 1700 brackets for our older coolers. So you can contact our service and support team if that's something that you do need. And for all of our newer coolers that are on the market, for the Ryujin 2, the Strix LC2, and the TUF Gaming LC ARGB, those are actually shipping right now in the box with 1700 actually brackets. And actually, as a general update, I think that actually maybe gives us a good just kind of status update in terms of kind of just a general product announcement. But for those of you that are going to be interested in, let's say, some of our next generation coolers, right? We've got our AIO coolers here. I can show you guys. I think I showed this in the last stream, but in case anybody's interested here, I can show this to you guys. Give me 1 second here. Here's some of our next-gen coolers. These actually, we have gone ahead and confirmed. We have channel partners that are actually listing these right now. They are going up. The Ryujin 2 is actually now listed right now on Newegg, and we expect probably actually what's called an active listing for it to essentially go online probably by about the end of next week. Could possibly be a little bit earlier. So for those of you that I know that have been waiting for our essentially second generation refresh of coolers, whether it's going to be the Ryujin 2, whether it's going to be the Strix LC2 or the TUF Gaming series, you should see those within about the next 5 to about 10 days from respective e-tailers. So not that too long to wait. And again, all of these will come in the box with the 1700 bracket. We essentially already refitted and updated the packaging before we sent them out to distribution so that you don't have to request anything. So that is a great benefit right now that if you are looking for 12th gen, there's nothing you need to worry about. You can essentially just go with one of our coolers and you will be good to go in that regard. Okay, guys, so that gets you covered in terms of update on the cooling side, because I know that we've had quite a number of people that were interested in those new coolers. Let me see here if we got any questions. Yeah, Derek's reporting on Wi-Fi 6E 987 megabits. Essentially, that's yeah, I would expect that. I mean, the great thing is that with Wi-Fi 6E, Wi-Fi 6, you can legitimately get faster speeds than actually 1,000 megabits through wireless connection. Of course, it will depend. One of the big benefits of sometimes people wonder is like, why should I need to go with such a high-speed router, right? Even if my internet connection is maybe only like 100 megabits or 250 megabits. The important thing to keep in mind when you are upgrading to a higher performance router is that wireless starts off kind of, let's say, at a very high level, and then depending on the distance, that actual level of speed will actually gradually go down. So, that speed will actually go down. So, what I mean by that is essentially, let's say you start off with about like 1,000 megabits, and this might be within your 10 feet of where your router is. As you move away, and let's say you get 150 feet away, 250 feet, 300 feet away, that number is going to come down from, let's say, 1,000 and might come down to, let's say, like 300, right? And so the goal is essentially to always make sure that the speed that you have is going to be faster than essentially your ISP provider can provide to you. And that helps to also make sure that you have enough bandwidth that you can supply to all the devices that you're connecting. Of course, many of us are going to be connecting, 5, 10, 15, 25, 35 devices in terms of wireless connections, or even wired and wireless connections. And so that's really a big benefit that you have, is that that more bandwidth is going to afford you that as the actual speed comes down over range, you're still going to be able to maintain very, very, very high throughput, and also be able to maintain low latency. Yes, this is one, in case somebody is wondering. Yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah, this is our ProArt boards. I thought I'd change it up a little bit. Recently, we've shown off quite a number of our ROG series, but these ProArt boards really do have just a fantastic design aesthetic, very clean. They both feature the new ID design, which we have, which is going to be predominantly black with just a little bit of gold accenting, which I think looks fantastic. And we've got both series. So again, if you guys are on the Intel or AMD side of the fence, whichever platform you want, we do have a ProArt series. So this is going to be the X570S, which is our latest edition in terms of a ProArt series board. And then here, of course, we have the Z690 ProArt, but we also have a B550 as well in terms of that. All of the ProArt series currently also feature high-end I/O connectivity. So like Thunderbolt is going to be built on board. They have robust remote management options, and there's a lot of really cool things that are in there. And of course, if anybody has any questions, because today we've only got one new product update with the new TUF Gaming H1 and H1 wireless headset that we're going to be talking about, feel free to go ahead and drop your questions, and I'll do my best to go ahead and answer those for you guys. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I definitely would agree. The Maximus 13 Extreme still is a beautiful motherboard. And actually, for those of you guys that got the Extreme, maybe you'll appreciate this. I just got this guy literally right before we started the stream. Oh, this is our brand new Maximus Z690 Extreme. We've already shown this off in our AMA and, of course, a couple of other pieces of content. But if you guys maybe want to see a little bit of an unboxing here, let me know, and I can show for you guys close up as opposed to just in the images. But the Extreme series, it's really our foundation of kind of very much like the Hero. With the Extreme and the Hero, we really look to define and set the standard for ROG and kind of the industry in a lot of ways. And I definitely agree that when you talk about the feature set, the functionality, and the aesthetics, that Extreme board, it's an awesome, awesome board, man. So thanks for being Team ROG and for being Team Maximus. Hey, Clayton, that's actually a really good point. I would recommend actually taking a look in the PCDIY group. I'll be actually having a post on this a little bit later. But yes, we do support the actual interoperability mode that Intel is essentially working on. But Intel is also going to be working on a few other updates that will be coming down the pipe in the not too distant future. So I think that right now it's a little bit of a balancing act in terms of trying to kind of say that this should be the only type of solution to mitigate type of concerns that might come up in terms of game interoperability and compatibility. But there is a UEFI parameter that essentially you can toggle off and on to help to go ahead and improve upon this experience. And depending on the game engines and different types of scenarios, there are also different ways that you could attempt to kind of adapt your kind of system. You could actually disable, let's say, something like the E-cores and only be running kind of your P-core configuration. So there are a couple of different types of permutations, but we will actually have a dedicated post in the PCDIY group in the not too distant future that will help to cover this a little bit more in depth with kind of a breakdown on the specific UEFI parameters, so that if that is something that you're going to be running into potentially in terms of kind of 12th gen, then you'll have that information at hand to be able to go ahead and get everything up and running and make sure that you're not having kind of any limitations in enjoying your system, right? Hey, Houston. Thanks, man. Happy to have you here on the stream. Fantastic. So Tyrone's asking, are there any new ROG case towers or anything that's going to be coming out? I believe. Yeah. I mean, the 12th gen CPUs will get hot, better flow. Okay, so Tyrone, this is actually a good question. There's a couple of things to kind of recap here. One, actually check out our PCDIY live stream that we did in terms of an AMA and also an overclocking stream. There's a lot of kind of generalized, I'd say, kind of opinions that are occurring in terms of kind of the quote unquote 12th gen series CPUs run hot. And I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. If we talk about actual general real world use, when you're talking about general applications in gaming, you can comfortably actually run a tower heatsink. I'll show you actually one of my test beds. This is one of my test beds that I've been running for the last couple of weeks. This right here, this is one of our TUF Gaming Z690 based motherboards with a Noctua U14S, right? A lot of people might think, and this is running a 12900K, okay? My people think that's not enough cooling solution. It's more than enough actually to be able to cool the 1200, 900K under normal gaming scenarios. And even actually I can do some per core based overclocking even with this configuration. So it's not necessarily that you have to entirely reevaluate the type of cooling that you have when it comes to your system. It's really not that much of a concern. The people that should be most concerned in terms of managing, I guess, their thermals or their temperatures are going to be users that are consistently running very heavy, consistent multi-threaded workloads. So those might be users that are maybe doing 3D modeling, animation, even editing. I would say it's very much dependent, because when you're editing, even within an application like Resolve or Premiere, hit film, whatever it might be, you're not generally consistently loading the CPU. That really only comes down to certain types of scenarios, like maybe certain types of renders, exports, things like that, where the CPU is heavily being loaded in. And the majority of situations, really, most users are going to be comfortably be able to be, I think, holding their temperatures with the 240 millimeter IO, 280 millimeter IO, 360 millimeter AIO. As far as the chassis, though, we don't have any immediate new chassis planned for the immediate future in terms of release. We did tease a little bit of a specialized kind of concept chassis that we're working on, a larger EATX-based kind of focus chassis, really going to be focused for builders out there that want to use something like the Extreme board, custom water cooling and things like that. And you can actually check out a teaser of that in our CES PCDIY live stream, or also go into ROG Citadel, which is a really cool application you can download in Steam that will give you a virtual tour of all kinds of hardware that we currently have available. And you can actually check out the preview to our upcoming EATX chassis, which has a very interesting and kind of cool design to it. Hey, Aaron, yes, make sure and just keep it tuned. We're just working on some logistic items, but we did get your information, and I'll be coordinating with our logistics team. So don't worry, we got you covered in that regard. Hey, yes, this is actually the Magnus, and it depends. I actually have streamed in different. I think in the last couple of streams, I've actually had the ENC enabled. Right now, I don't have the ENC enabled, and right now it's on your standard pattern. But there are multiple patterns, and of course, you do have ENC enabled. An ENC option available on here, but not too much point on covering a product that is no longer available. But definitely, I know that we've had some interest in terms of people, seeing a new update coming from ROG or from ASUS when it comes to having a microphone offering. So maybe in the not too distant future, guys. So let me go ahead and get ready to jump in here. Hey, Dylan, thanks for joining the stream. And Tony, also thanks for joining the stream. Let me go ahead and get ready to jump into just giving you guys a general update in terms of a new product that we've got coming out right here. And that is going to be with the TUF Gaming H1. So TUF Gaming, for those of you who are essentially kind of wondering, that is our entry series into our gaming product line. So it starts off with TUF Gaming, then we've got ROG Strix, and then our highest end series is going to be the ROG Maximus series of motherboards. So with TUF Gaming, our focus really is to be able to try to kind of offer a very strong value in terms of the price point, not necessarily add in like a lot of specialized yeah, I'd say kind of more enthusiast level kind of features and functions, but really kind of the core functions and features that users are looking for within that kind of respective price point, right? And also keep, I think, a clean and kind of focused type of design, right? So that's definitely what we've got here with the H1 and the H1 wireless. So let me go ahead and load up some images here for you guys, and you guys can check out these new headsets that we're going to be coming out. And I will say that they're really aggressively priced. We've got the H1 wired version, which will be coming in at a price point of $34.99, so essentially $35, and then the wireless version will be coming in at a price point of $89.99. So very reasonable in terms of your price point. So here we go, guys. Let's go ahead and take a look here. This is going to be the H1, and we're going to check out the product page, talk about some of the kind of the key features here, and we'll take a look. Oh, sorry, it looks like that image is a little bit skewed there, so no worries on that side. Let me go ahead and just load up that page for you guys, and we'll take a look at it there. Okay, here we go. We've got our page up. Okay, so here you guys can see this is the H1 gaming headset. And I think one of the things that I'm a big fan of is definitely if you're somebody that is looking for a lighter weight headset, this is only going to be coming in at, I believe, 287 grams. So it's quite a bit lighter, especially if you've actually ever tried out our Delta headset. The Delta, it's a fantastic headset. It's probably my favorite headset that we offer in our entire lineup, but it is a bit on the heavier side. The new Delta S is definitely much lighter than the original Delta, but this at under 300 grams is quite lightweight. It uses an entirely new suspension band design with this fabric material as well. So very, very minimal in terms of the overall clamping force. So if you're somebody that I'd say has a little bit more sensitivity to high levels of clamping force, this is very comfortable. And you also don't have to have yoke adjustment, which I think sometimes can be nice because you don't kind of have to adjust the balance of left or right side. You can pretty much just fit it over your head. And because of the suspension-based design in the fabric, it'll just kind of conform to your head. So very, very nice in terms of that design. This is the wired-based version. So again, this is coming in at $35 here. Has a microphone. Microphone's nice and clean. It's a it's a certified with TeamSpeak and Discord. So you got solid kind of quality there, and it's got our 40 millimeter Essence drivers, which have been tuned, I think, for a very good soundstage. It's not overtly kind of booming. It's got clear, well-defined bass that's present. You also have solid mid-range and good kind of, I'd say, upper-end tonality. So it's not like overtly sharp or sibilant, but it definitely has some good detailing there. So this works well as a gaming headset, but, you know, definitely also will serve you well if you're just going to be listening to maybe some music, or of course, you know, maybe watching some videos online or anything along those lines. Now, we'll see this note in terms of Virtual 7.1. There's no hardware-based processing on here for multi-channel surround. So if you do want essentially that kind of surround experience, then you can go ahead and do that by just enabling that within the Windows environment and taking advantage of something like the DTS:X suite or Dolby Atmos suite or Windows Sonic. All are options to be able to go ahead and give you essentially multi-channel audio. So beyond that, here you actually can see a little bit of kind of this kind of internal design here, where what we're talking about here in an airtight chamber design is that if we get a little bit into kind of the reason why designing on headphones is important, is having this space actually be airtight helps to reduce essentially resonance and I would say kind of muddiness in terms of your soundstage. It helps to keep the overall sound more focused, clearer, and better defined. And overall, that's part of something that we have consistently in our headphone designs, as well as our headset designs. So when you see this thing that says airtight chamber design, what is that talking about? That is the actual way that we've designed the actual housing. These are these 40 millimeter Essence drivers, which we have tuned here. And then you've got your protein leather, which is nice and comfortable, padded. Really, I think you can definitely game on these for multiple hours on end. If you're somebody that runs really, really hot, that's where it may be advantageous to maybe look at something like the Delta series, where we have even a fast cooling specialized protein leather, which it's a little bit more expensive, but it will offer a very, very fast kind of cool down period. So even if you're gaming for literally, 4, 5, 6 hours on session, then, you can have a very, very comfortable experience. But I would say that for most users, this really shouldn't be a concern. Okay. Now, one of the other nice things here is that you will see that we do have on-ear cup controls. So the on-ear cup controls will give you an easy way to be able to access the volume and the microphone. So you can go ahead and mute that, and you can go ahead and adjust your volume. So very, very easy. Overall, clean, simple, and functional based design. And of course, with it being a 3.5 millimeter jack, you're going to be able to use this on all kinds of different types of devices. Pretty much if it's got a 3.5 millimeter jack, you can use it on that device. So that means, it's a laptop, desktop, phone, Nintendo Switch, whatever it might be, you're going to be good to go. So you can see that we've got other headsets within this lineup, but the main ones that we're going to talk about today are just going to be the TUF Gaming H1. And now we're going to go ahead and take a closer look at the H1 wireless. So this one is going to look almost identical, but it will be just a little bit different because the H1 wireless is wireless, right? So let's go ahead and take it this one. And I will also make sure to take a look here, guys, at your questions in a moment. So give me 1 second here. So you'll see right here with this model, it looks almost identical. Again, the H1 is going to be coming in at $35, and this one is going to be coming in at essentially $90. This is a USB-C 2.4 gigahertz wireless-based headset. We don't use Bluetooth because 2.4 gigahertz offers more bandwidth, superior range, lower latency, and overall a better experience when it comes to gaming. The USB-C adapter, it's great because you can attach this to anything. If you've got a USB-C smartphone, if you have a tablet, you have a Switch, desktop, laptop, whatever it might be, just attach this dongle and instantaneously, no software, no pairing, nothing. You will immediately then have your wireless connection to your headset. So I love that. It does come included in the box with an adapter, so you can adapt this to USB Type A in the event that you don't have a USB-C port on your system. So we will cover you kind of in both scenarios. Beyond that, the design is going to be very, very similar. This is just a little bit more, I think 295 grams, which is still very good for a wireless headset. The design is going to be pretty much identical in terms of all the other elements that I talked about in terms of the suspension, of course, headband design and the fabric-based material. This one, though, will be a little bit different is that because this is USB-C, this will also now have some native processing abilities within our ROG, our TUF Gaming Armory Crate software. So when you set this up on the PC, you will actually have a specialized options where you can go in and set customized audio profiles. You can actually enable virtual surround through Armory Crate and actually tweak different operating parameters. That's really nice. Here you can see the coverage is quite good, up to 25 meters. Battery life is very good. It's for multiple days. I would say, we have it rated for up to 15 hours. And I would say internally, probably for most users, that's going to equate to probably somewhere between 2 to 4 days in terms of kind of on and off usage, gaming sessions and other things like that. Of course, depending on the distance, the volume, and kind of other parameters, this will either kind of reduce your battery life or extend the battery life. Okay. But that is going to be the TUF Gaming H1 and then the H1 wireless. And right there, again, you've got the ear cup control. So you can see you've got there the USB-C connection, got the power button, microphone off and on, and then volume toggle. So all covered there in terms of pretty much all your key connections, and I think going to be a very, very solid choice for those of you that are looking to step up to, a new headset if you're looking to upgrade. So let me go ahead and take a look and see if we've got any questions right here. Hey, Dalton, in terms of next gen for Intel laptops, nothing I can speak to right now. So, I would recommend that just make sure to keep it tuned to our social media channels, as well as I can tell you that we will have in the not too distant future, we will start having an actual ASUS systems live stream, maybe not on a weekly basis, but probably about every 2 weeks. So I will also be hosting that to give you guys updates resident to our kind of laptops, our phones, and our desktops, kind of our system related products. So here on the PCDIY stream, we focus on pretty much all of our component hardware. So all of our PCDIY hardware. So motherboards, graphics cards, monitors, routers, fans, cooling solutions, power supplies, peripherals, all those items. And in the not too distant future, like I said, we're going to have you covered when it comes to systems as well. Hey, Tony, definitely agree, man. ROG all day, man. Thank you so much. Yes, X570. So yes, this one right here is the X570S, and then on this side I've got the Z690. So these are just our ProArt series motherboards. I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of something, kind of a different perspective. If you have any specific questions on any of our X570 or B550 series motherboards, feel free and ask. Hey, Tony. So what, if any, differences? This is a good question. You might be worth actually going back to check our Windows 11 AMA stream. I talked actually about some of the things that I think, have some media and just kind of users haven't necessarily been talking about. But there's actually certain responsive based structural elements that Windows has actually built in terms of how they actually handle foreground and background tasks and other things along those lines, outside of even the optimizations that Intel worked with Microsoft on in terms of kind of maximizing performance. But I can tell you from kind of my general kind of testbed configuration, I've run testing for both Windows 10 and Windows 11. And overall, when we just talk about the general user experience, it's essentially parity. It's not like one is going to be significantly worse or even going to be significantly better. I will say that I can feel that Windows 11 is even more responsive, and that's quite impressive considering that with a 10th gen system, with all that max high-end hardware, DDR5, latest generation PCIe Gen 4 SSDs, and having everything tuned and fresh, it still feels super snappy and super responsive, but it even feels more responsive under Windows 11. There are also, I think, some structural elements that I just like a little bit more, but there are still certain benefits to Windows 10 when it comes to like multi-monitor configurations and certain layout parameters that you may still favor. So it's really kind of one of those challenging things. My recommendation that I actually give to a lot of people is that if you can, maybe try using Windows 11 in a virtual machine, or if you can afford maybe a small, just basic, M.2 SSD, you can get pretty low cost, or SATA-based SSD, 256, 500 gigabyte, very low cost, to just do a test installation on, so that you can kind of start to be comfortable with that other environment and see if there's things that you like or don't like, or test out certain kind of aspects to the experience of what you're going to be doing on the system. But I wouldn't say there's fundamental kind of any key limiting factors that would hinder overall kind of performance. There are still some, of course, applications in certain scenarios which could favor either kind of OS environment, but I definitely think as we kind of move to the beginning of the year, you continue to see more updates and more drivers be installed. For the most part, users are going to kind of be getting the best experience for Alder Lake and Z690 as you move to Windows 11. But Windows 10 is a very mature and stable platform. So, it really kind of works in either scenario. It just depends on what your preference is. But I will make a note that I don't recommend upgrades. If you're really looking to kind of make sure you get the best performance, my recommendation is always to go with a full clean OS installation. Hey, Legendary, thanks so much for the kind words. You hopefully have a great Friday and a great weekend. Very, very cool. Let me see here. Hey, Mark, fantastic. Thanks for, picking up the actual Z690 Hero. Yeah, I definitely agree that having the mounting holes there is definitely a really nice convenient. And the RGB design is really nice with that actual polymorph display. I'd love to hear your feedback, Mark, in terms of what your experience with AIOC is, or did you use the really cool, did you end up finding it useful, the Q release design? So if you guys don't know, we actually have this cool little button. If anybody wants to see it on our Z690 motherboards, I can demo it. But essentially, it's a design that it will engage the actual PCIe latching mechanism. So when you install the graphics card, instead of having to hit this latch, you just press this button and it will eject the graphics card. So it makes the experience really that much more kind of seamless when you're going through, building or upgrading your system or whatever it might be. If you just kind of have to have easier access, maybe to put in an M.2 SSD, or maybe readjust cabling or whatever it might be, it just makes the experience that much nicer. Will a router with satellite internet gaming get a little connection to my room? I'm sorry, Blueberry, if you can re-explain your question, repost and maybe clarify it a little bit. I'll try to see if I can get a little bit more information from you so that I can try to give you the best response possible. Kevin, I agree. I think the Magnus in black would look fantastic, right? Maybe with like a cool little OLED display too, right? For like voice and maybe some like, you know, macro buttons or something like that. I'd love to see an actual entirely clear capsule head too, so to actually be able to see the actual independent tri-capsules inside there. I think that would be really cool. Maybe even actually have like an RGB filament on there, so you'd see actually them kind of pulsing over the capsules, as long as of course that didn't impede the audio quality or something like that. Okay, guys. Yeah, keep having the questions come in. No worries in that regard. But we've got you covered there in terms of, like I said, those new products for the TUF Gaming H1 headset as well as the H1 wireless. You should be seeing those come in the not too distant future. Probably, I think, sometime in around December timeframe. You should probably start seeing those show up at your respective e-tailers. Again, so you'll be seeing the TUF Gaming H1 coming in at $35, and then the TUF Gaming H1 wireless coming in at $90. So if you're looking for a new gaming headset, definitely check those out. And of course, if you're looking for something a little bit higher end, we still have the ROG Delta series, which are my favorite series. And we've got those with 3.5 millimeter connections, as well as our highest end models, which feature ESS Saber quad DACs built into them and native USB-C connections, so that you can literally just plug that straight into any USB-C enabled device. All right, so in a moment here, we're going to get ready to kick off the PC DIY Builder Spotlight. As I said, guys, not too many updates this week in terms of hardware. But at the same time, I want to make sure that we're given an opportunity to answer anybody's questions that might be coming up in there. So if you've got any questions, feel free and let me know. I'm going to go ahead and take out this Extreme just because I can show you guys just in live here that we've got it. Why not go ahead and show it off here? So give me 1 second. I need a little bit of space to put this box down. Got to move this M.2 card here. And some of you guys may not know this, but on some of our Z690 series boards too, they do come included with this Hyper M.2 add-in card. I'm working with our team to try to see if we can have that be a little bit clearer in the product page information, because some users don't realize that this actual card is coming with some of the motherboards. So this will actually give you the ability to add then 2 more additional M.2 based SSDs. And for some boards, this will also be important because this is also how you will enable PCIe Gen 5 support in terms of your motherboard. And I know somebody else had a question regarding M.2 placement. And this is, I think, a good time to maybe talk a little bit about this before getting into the PCDIY Builder Spotlight. But sometimes there can be some confusion when we talk about kind of the slot arrangement. So let me bring this board here. This is my TUF Gaming board, and I can put this under the secondary cam, but I've actually got 4 M.2 SSDs installed on this board. So if we put this under our secondary cam here, I'll take a look here and show you. But a lot of times people ask, like, well, what's the best slot to use? And the reality is there isn't necessarily, quote unquote, truly a best slot. And what I mean by that is it does very much depend on what are you really trying to maximize. And what I mean by that is because while you can get better, quote unquote, performance in some scenarios, in terms especially of latency, by, let's say, wiring your M.2 SSD to your CPU as opposed to, let's say, a chipset linked lane, it isn't necessarily going to be a requirement to be able to ensure the best performance. So if we take a look right here, you can see I've got one M.2 SSD. You might not see it a little bit there because of the Noctua heatsink. Here's another M.2 SSD. Here's another M.2 SSD. And here's another M.2 SSD. So in total, you can see that we've got 4 M.2 SSDs that are on this board. Now, in the manual will help you to actually detail and understand where these actual slots are being linked to. And pretty much most situations, what you have is you're either going to have an M.2 that's going to be linked to the CPU. So it's actually going to be linked directly to the processor. Those will be your preferred slots if you're somebody that, quote unquote, wants the absolute best performance and the lowest latency. But let's say, for instance, like on a platform like Z690, or also like on a platform like X570, if you've got PCIe Gen 4 based SSDs, you can have Gen 4 being supplied by the chipset, but you can also have Gen 4 being supplied by the CPU. The CPU will have lower latency, so technically it is going to be superior, but it effectively will provide you the same experience. There's no fundamental difference. So if you want to have the M.2 SSDs just because maybe they're easier to access in a different location and run those from the chipset, that's entirely fine. There isn't necessarily a specific advantage to running those. The other thing too that kind of comes into play is some users go, well, I want to try to make sure that my graphics card is not limited, right? And the reality is that you know, there's still only so many PCI lanes that are going to be supplied on a platform. So take for instance, like on Z690 will give you 16 lanes from the CPU, and then 4 lanes for the graphics card. Excuse me, 4 lanes for your SSD. So you could put in one SSD and still not affect your GPU. Your GPU would still 100% run at full by 16 speed. Now it doesn't need to run it by 16. By 8 would still literally effectively give you about pretty much max performance, even on a high-end card like a 3080 or 3090. In some specific scenarios, maybe like ultra high refresh rate gaming, or maybe certain GPU accelerating scenarios, you might see a little bit of a difference, but we're talking about very, very small difference between kind of by 8 and by 16. But if you're going to keep adding more and more drives, this is a reality. You're going to eventually pull some lanes away from that graphics card to be able to facilitate the use of more M.2 SSDs. So ultimately, the best thing you can do is if you just want to try to figure out where you want to link your drives, look in the manual. I would generally, like I said, recommend just go with whatever slot you think is going to work best for you from an ease of standpoint, because it doesn't really make a difference between the CPU link lanes and the chipset link lanes. But if you care, like I said, the most about latency, then go with your CPU linked lanes. Those will be the ones that will give you the absolute best performance and the best experience, right? But it is not a requirement. So hopefully that answers a little bit of the question that sometimes we get some people that ask about those things. Let me just see, because we did cover some information right there, and I still want to pull that board out there of the box there. Hey, John, happy to have you here on the stream. Hey, Marzim, cool to hear that you got a hero build up and running. If you could clarify your question, I'll try to see if I can answer it. Mark, I just answered the question as far as new AIOs. You should start probably seeing them pop up next week. We know Newegg is right now pretty much put the listings up, and you should start to probably see availability as far as actually being an active listing where you can click like add to cart, probably within about the next 5 to 10 days. Hey, Mario. So we actually already have motherboards that do have PCI Express Gen 5 natively on the motherboard. So in our Z690 lineup, there will be some motherboards that will have that. The way that we've designed it for kind of a clarity purpose is, let's say like I can tell you the ROG Strix Z690-E has an actual M.2 slot that's on the motherboard that is wired for PCI Gen 5 natively. All Maximus series motherboards will all support PCI Gen 5 M.2 based SSD configurations, whether it's natively through a slot that will be on the motherboard or whether through that add-in card that I talked about. So that is detailed on the product page, that it will show you the difference. So if you guys want, I can show you what that looks like on the product page. Let me actually bring up the product page here, and I'll show you how you can confirm that information. So 1 second. So we'll take a look at the Z690-E. I guess an option here. So let me share this here. Give me a second, guys. Okay. So here we're looking at the ROG Strix Z690-E, and we'll go to the tech specs. So we got to scroll down a little bit here, and we'll see like expansion slots, right? And then you'll see storage, right? And you can actually see right here, right, under storage, it says supports 3 M.2, right, SATA with 12th gen right here. So you can see M.2_1, which means the first M.2 slot actually supports PCIe 5x4. So that means that slot is actually wired to give you that. That is going to be rare. A lot of people don't understand that not all motherboards will give you PCIe Gen 5 M.2 SSD support. Of course, you know, there are no M.2 SSDs right now on the market that give you PCIe Gen 5 interconnects. They will be coming in the future, but if that's something that's important to you, then you will need to have a board that has that specification detailed out. Where then you can see the other slots like the M.2 secondary slot, right? That slot is only wired for PCIe 4x4. Or as you can see right here, the other slot, the Hyper M.2 slot, or the third slot right there, also limited to PCIe 4. And like I said, for Maximus series motherboards, though, all Maximus series boards will all support PCIe Gen 5 M.2, but it will depend. It could be natively on the motherboard, or it could be through the included add-in card. Okay. Hey, John, I'm not sure what you mean. Can you boot off the board you just showed us? If you can clarify for me your question, I will try to answer your question. Christopher, that's a really good question. So we actually pushed quite a bit more for U.2. And the main reason why I think it's just it wasn't that popular with users. U.2 is a better standard in a lot of ways than M.2. M.2 was really designed first and foremost for the laptop market. And I think just users found it kind of convenient and easy. And with so much media focus on laptops, it kind of came along for the ride as kind of being a good option, right? And also because it was one of the first easy ways that you were seeing PCI Express being integrated as opposed to like an add-in card that was going into a slot. And that kind of favored it. But M.2 does have a lot of limitations. It has a physical density configuration limit. It has thermal configuration limit, and it also has a power configuration limit. And where U.2 actually supports more power, because it's a larger drive, it can actually have much higher densities, which we saw. It wasn't really until only very recently that we've seen larger capacities. For a long time, M.2 was stuck at 1 and barely 2 terabyte options, and now you finally got 4 and you got some 8. But for a very long time, you could actually get U.2, and you can get U.2 right now, I think up to 16 terabytes, which you can't get in M.2, and that's because it's not thermally constrained, it's not power constrained, and it's not physically constrained. Whether or not we'll see this get reintroduced, maybe. But right now, I think because since most of the drives that are generally available, which you can buy these U.2 based drives, they're more prominent in the kind of, I'd say, professional and kind of enterprise space. You see those more in kind of workstation oriented motherboards where we still do put in U.2 based connectors. Thanks, Matt, for watching the streams. Fantastic here. So I would definitely agree. ProArt boards are fantastic. Hey, GP. Happy to have you here. So, hey, Richard. Fantastic to have you here. I'm going to go ahead and show off this Extreme board here really quick, guys. And then we're going to go ahead and kick off the PCDIY Builder Spotlight. If anybody's got any questions, feel free to do that. But let me get this board here. Oh, it's really heavy. You could do some curls with this thing. All right. Let's go ahead and open this here. This is a pretty serious board here. So this is just about our flagship series motherboard. We have one model that is above this, which would be the Maximus Extreme Glacial. And here we go. Oh, but this is the Extreme. Oh, wow. Now, there's a lot of stuff that's in this box that I don't want to eliminate because a lot of people think that when they're buying these higher-end boards, it's just the motherboard. But literally in that box, you get a USB quad DAC that's included. You get a screwdriver. You get a fan ARGB controller hub that's included in there. There's a USB flash drive that's also included. There's specialized cables. There's the actual voltage technician card that also can get installed on this board. There's a lot of different things, but this is a stunning board that's on here. And this is very, very beefy. It's massive VRM heatsink assembly that's on here. And of course, it's also got the DIMM.2 add-in card. But one of the things that I really love is this right here, this new RGB lighting design that we have. This is the Anime Matrix display. So there's 222 LEDs that can be configured and controlled in terms of the Aura Creator software to really be able to kind of tune the overall design. But let me go ahead and just maybe put this a little bit over here under the secondary shot, and we're going to start off the builder spotlight here in a moment, but give you guys a little closer shot of this. And the main reason why I got this board, so in case anybody's wondering, is in the next week or so, we will be having actually some upcoming streams for everybody that's interested in Z690 that will cover each one of the series independently. So we had a general AMA that covered kind of all the boards, but now as all the boards are kind of pretty much showing up online, we want to give people a really good kind of access to understanding the way the boards are spread out, what's their features, functions, and designs. So we're going to have dedicated stream on just each series. So we'll have one for the Prime, for the TUF Gaming, for the ROG Strix, for the ROG Maximus, and for the ProArt. So that stream, you kind of won't have to worry about other models or other things. We're going to hyper focus on just those models, give you all this kind of features and functions, and answer all those prospective questions on those models. And hopefully that gives you guys more information to help to pick the board that will be right for you. So let me go ahead and get this over here and just show you guys. Wow, this is a really great looking board here. See right there. All right, there we go. All right, let's take a look right there. And here you can see it's a beautiful looking motherboard, right, that we've got right there. You can see massive heat pipe. So this VRM heatsink assembly is super large. This is all aluminum. There's actually a staggered base design right here. Then there's a full heat pipe that goes from here to here to here, right? And then of course you've got the 24 power stages that are on this board. Of course, all the premium components in terms of the power stages, the inductors, the actual capacitors as well. That's where the DIMM.2 add-in card is. Here's where the Q release design is. Something that some people don't even realize, there's Thunderbolt 4 in an integrated header on here, not just on the rear. And the reason why is because there will be actually chassis in the future that will allow you to have front USB Thunderbolt 4 connectivity. So this board has kind of been designed for the future in that regard. You've got this really cool pin fin thermal design that we have here on the bottom. So there's actually kind of a textural design element, but it's also functional. Really, really beautiful looking board with the Extreme. All right, guys, that wraps up, I think, what I wanted to just show there. Like I said, that's not the focus of what we got. I want to get ready to jump into our PCDIY Builder Spotlight. So let me get ready to get our boards up here. And again, if anybody has any questions, feel free and post your questions. All right, so let me get up our submission form here for our Builder Spotlight. And if anybody's interested in submitting your build, all you got to do is join our PCDIY group. If you join our PCDIY group, there's an announcement section. Just go to the announcements. And when you go to the announcements, there's a submission form. You can submit your build and you can get featured here on the PCDIY Builders Spotlight. So love to feature your build. And let me drop a link in there in the chat if anybody is interested in checking that out. And I will quickly check to see if we got any questions right here. Hey, yeah, so before I go to that, so Blueberry is asking, will a gaming router help give me a more stable connection for gaming in my room while my parents are watching Netflix in the living room? We can only get satellite interconnection where we live. So yes, a gaming router can actually help you. So how can it help you? In your situation, you might essentially have limited bandwidth, right? But what you can do is you can help to actually prioritize the way that essentially your devices are accessing the router. Now, gaming actually doesn't require a lot of bandwidth. And so what I mean by that is you don't actually have to have that much of a fast connection, although that still can play, of course, a part. Because in most actually multiplayer games, since the rendering, of course, the game is happening on your system, it's not like you're streaming a game where, let's say, if you had something like GeForce Now, or you're doing like Google Stadia, or you were doing something like that, where you would really have to have a much faster connection. But what you want to do is you want to prioritize the gaming being above anything else so that you have the lowest latency to be the best responsiveness when it comes to an online connected experience. What you can do with the gaming router is that we have a gaming port, as well as we have QoS options, so quality service options, where you can prioritize gaming first, and then you could have like streaming be afterwards. Since streaming actually can use buffering and other types of mechanisms to be able to maintain its experience, this will allow you still to have essentially kind of streaming going on, so somebody watching something like a video on demand, but you getting a smoother experience when you're gaming. So yes, this is potentially an option by going into the router and enabling that. And also by also having just more bandwidth for your wireless connection, that can improve upon your experience that you're having when you're gaming and also doing other things at the same time. Okay, let me just see if there's any other questions here. Oh, fantastic. You're running the ROG Maximus Hero Z590 board. That's a fantastic board, man. Thanks for being part of Team ROG. Can I see the side of the Extreme board? Sure. Merrick, what is it you want to see? Just let me know what specifically. Are you talking about the IO or which side, quote unquote? Let me know and I'll show you that. No problems there. Oh yeah. So you want to see where you can plug in the 24-pin power? Yep. So that's no problem. Yeah. So what you're asking for is essentially on the Extreme board. We have made this because in most chassis you're going to probably have for the Extreme, it's going to probably be in an EATX-based chassis. So all the actual connections have been made right angle so that you can just directly plug into there. So they're not actually going to be vertically oriented like here, where you would plug in the cable vertically and it would go here and then you kind of route it to the side. You're actually going to go straight. You're going to go straight on the side. So it's going to be a horizontal base connection as opposed to a vertically oriented connection. So that's going to be true for pretty much the entire grouping that you see right here. So, and they're all labeled. So here you've got like the fan grouping, you've got SATA, you've got your power, your 24 pins. So those are all right angle right there. All right, let's take a look here at our first build and the builder spotlight. Give me a second here. Let me move this around a little bit. Okay. All right, guys. So let me see here. Our first build, I think, is actually going to be the Razor from Nordic 3D. So if you guys have ever checked out any one of Soren's builds, he is a true masterclass builder. One of my favorite builders, I think, in the PCDIY field. He's got a really amazing kind of focus when it comes to, I think, a design aesthetic that's really clean and polished, very kind of consistent in terms of kind of the look and feel that when you see his work, you kind of really know what he's bringing to the table. So let's go ahead and take a look at his system here. So this is the Razor. All right. So right off the bat, you can see it's got a beautiful, clean aesthetic. Now, usually in the PCDIY Builder Spotlight, I ask for hopefully 2 sets of photos. So a system, if there's going to kind of be RGB lighting on, I ask for the RGB lighting to be on, and then in another photo to actually turn the lighting, excuse me, have the RGB lighting off, and then in another photo to turn the RGB lighting on. So we can see we've got a vertically oriented GPU setup, which normally I'm not always the biggest fan of, but I think it works really well here because we still have depth and contrast with the different tubing. And there's color play that's reinforcing the depth and dimension, which I think really adds a really cool kind of a design aesthetic that we've got right here, right? So let's go ahead and take a look right here on the straight on profile. Beautiful runs that we have there. I love kind of this parallelism that we've got right here with these tubes they're running in the back. And then we've got the horizontal based tubings. Really nice clean run right here. I do love that he respected the IO shroud section here. So he left us room, right, to be able to still see the board and kind of some ID design, which sometimes that's one of the things that I don't always kind of appreciate in some builds, right? Is like, I wish there was a little bit more kind of clear focus to maintain things, but that really depends on kind of what the builder's perspective is, right? What do they want to have be in the foreground? What do they want to be the focus? Maybe it's not the motherboard. Maybe it is specifically the tubing. Maybe it's the kind of overall feel. And then here, I think it's a really great balance of showing off key components, but there's a more kind of harmonious vision of laying kind of this depth and dimension and really beautiful kind of contrast in terms of the color. So we can see the lighting come on there, and that really just kind of brightens up the whole build, gives us this nice contrast and kind of color pop. We go here with, of course, the green lighting that we've got within the fans. You can see, of course, now the illumination in the block, and then we've also got the illumination there in terms of the dims, and that just looks fantastic. And the transparency plays really, really nice here too in terms of the tubing. And giving us some other angles right here, and it just looks great. I mean, this is just a stunning build. And of course, you know, we've got the EK and ASUS collab right here that we see a lot of times in terms of kind of blocks with our boards, which they always have a really great synergy in terms of just the overall design aesthetic. Here you can see the DIM.2 add-in card right within this setup. So you can also see that we're using an Extreme board in this system right here. Of course, we've got the distro, and then we've got the rad, and we've got our other fans up right here. So it's definitely packed to the gills in terms of a system, right? But really, really cleanly done. But I wouldn't expect anything less from Nordic 3D, right? I mean, they do a fantastic job. He does a fantastic job when it comes to the overall fit and finish. So beautiful build here with the Razer. Let's go ahead and take a look here at his submission form, guys, and give me 1 second here. So, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and take a look right here. Fun fact: JJ's allergic to vertical GPUs. Not allergic, just it's not my preference. I think in some situations it can actually work. And fun fact, I'll tell you, actually, I have pushed our team to be thinking about vertical designs for years. A lot of the design work that we did on our graphics cards, not only in our current generation, but in prior generations where we actually integrated lighting designs to be visually present within the actual vertical design and the vertical profile of the card, was purposely done because I realized that the community has kind of a preference to want to be able to go either way. The vast majority of builders do horizontal based builds, but you know, definitely we want to be able to give flexibility within our designs to show you both options. Part of the also reason why I don't necessarily always favor it is because if you just talk about complexity, a vertical installation does add more challenges, right? You're going to have more considerations in terms of riser cable. You could have more interoperability and compatibility issues. You could have EMI related issues. If you're not water cooling it, you have sometimes thermal considerations as well. So there's just more things to kind of keep in mind, right? But that being noted, let's again go ahead and take a look here at our submission form and see what we've got. So does the build have a theme? Yes. Razer and their green color was the central element, is what the focus was here. What are 3 words you could use to describe the build? Green, powerful, and green. So definitely green twice, but I would definitely agree. We've got that definitely present within the build. Razer is the name right there in terms of the system. For core componentry right here, let's see, we've got a 10900K. This is a Maximus 12 Extreme that's in this system, and then it's running some Corsair Vengeance Pro. It's an RG Strix 3090, of course, with a Vector series block from EK that's in there. We've got a couple of 1 terabyte 980 M.2 SSDs, 1200 power supply, 1200 watt power supply from Corsair, all running, of course, in an O11. And then we've got Corsair rounding out a lot of the fans right there with LL120s, 9 of them. And then also we've got the Hydro XR5, and then a lot of the water cooling specific components we've got, of course, from EK with the magnitude that is going to be present in there, along with the Vector Strix block, and also active backplate. He put the active backplate that's on this card too. So pretty specced out right there. What aspect is he most proud of? The coolant color and the hidden rad in the back. I would agree with that. You totally don't even know that it's there. So impressive job in terms of that. Anything that he would change? Custom cables. I agree. I mean, to me, you know, we take a look here at kind of the cables. I don't think it's a huge loss, right? So if we take a look right here, we can see that this is right here. These are the native cables that come with the 1200i. Sure, adding in custom cables would give us a little bit more pop, right? Maybe add a little bit more premium element to it, but you know, since they're so neatly tucked in there, you don't really notice it. So I don't think it's a huge loss, but sure, if it was in there, it'd be a little bit of a nice touch. Took overall about 6 months to get everything. The GPU was really, really tough, so it was a very lengthy time to be able to get this build completed. Client uses this just for gaming, so that's his only focus. And his favorite part of the build is the Strix 3090. Just getting able to try that out and work with that card is an absolute beast in terms of the card. So overall, man, thumbs up. Fantastic build. The Razer here from Nordic 3D. So let's get ready to take a look at our next build here, guys. Give me 1 second here. Hey, JDE, in terms of the ProArt board, you should be able to see it. I don't know which board it is you're kind of wondering about. If you want, feel free to go ahead and tag me in the PCDIY group or send me an email, pcdiy@asus.com, and we can try to maybe see if we can help to give you some visibility on which board as far as you're asking about, because we have ProArt series motherboards for, of course, AMD and for Intel. We've got B550, we have X570, we have Z690. So there's a multitude of different boards, but they're all active in production. So it could just be a process of just waiting to see that board get back in stock. In terms of listing, of course, there's a lot of factors right now that are occurring in terms of supply chain and logistics and things like that, but they are all in active production. So before we get into our next builder spotlight, we've got a question right here. So as I'm looking to upgrade my CPU right now, I've got a TUF 3060 Ti with the 3700X. That's a very solid combination right there. I want to get a Strix B550 board for newer features that are on there, and I also want to upgrade the CPU, but I'm not sure what I should get. Would you say a 5800 would be a good upgrade? So definitely going over from a 3000 series to 5000 series is a solid upgrade in terms of giving you just general kind of performance uplift. But it very much depends, I think, on the game and the resolution. In some games, right, especially if you're playing like a 1440p, you might not necessarily be CPU bound, right? So you might not see kind of a direct performance uplift, right? So it depends. But if you're maybe gaming at 1080p and trying to target higher refresh rates, 200, 240, 280, 360 hertz type scenarios, then yes, you could definitely see a benefit by moving over to a 5600 or 5800X. I would also note, I would probably say that for most gaming scenarios, I think the better choice is probably the 5600X along with PBO, and doing kind of a tweaked optimization to it to try to get that best boost clock performance out of it. I don't know that I necessarily say that you would be justified at moving all the way up to a 5800X. Both are going to be great parts, but 5800 also is going to be producing a little bit more heat, so you'd have to count a little bit more for cooling. But again, from a gaming scenario, you'd still be fine either which way with a 240 millimeter IO. My overall recommendation, though, is I would probably say you could probably extend performance a bit by using PBO and some performance tuning on your current CPU, seeing where kind of it plays out in terms of kind of your gaming experience with that part before you necessarily make the jump, because I don't know that necessarily you would get a clear uplift in terms of what you're looking for. But if you've got more questions, feel free to join our group. Post your question there, and we can definitely follow up and try to give you some additional insights and recommendations or where you might see improvements. But and definitely some cases you would see a very noticeable uplift. But in other scenarios, like I said, and depending on the resolution, you might not see that much of an uplift in terms of the performance. All right, so next up, we've got a build here from Card. This is going to be the LizArt Lab. And so this was a really interesting build. When I saw this build, I was like, wow, this is just something that looks different. It's totally not the norm in terms of kind of a traditional build, what I think many of us kind of are thinking about when we think about a water-cooled build. So let's go ahead and see what we've got here. All right, so right off the bat, you can see that we've got a very different design aesthetic. We've got a vertically oriented system. It's got kind of like a spherical design aesthetic, which is really interesting and different. We've got that bold and bright, almost UV green that's going on there. Really, really cool, really different, really distinctive, right? We can take a closer look shot here. I really like, of course, some of the design patterns right here, which it looks like kind of like, I think, a salamander that you have that's on there, right? The LizArt Lab, which makes sense right here, kind of the splattering effect. And then you can, of course, see that alternate color that's on the inside of the chamber, which I think is really, really cool. A lot of creativity went into this. I think it's a really cool, kind of differentiated type of build when you talk about the design aesthetic here. Really interesting stuff in terms of how it's been laid out. You can see, of course, there we've got a mini ITX board because we're dealing with a much smaller quote unquote chassis, right? You can see that hardline tubing that's in there, and you can also see, of course, your PSU wiring and cables that are done in there. But I think it all works, right? It doesn't necessarily have to kind of all be super clean and focused, but it's got a really cool, you know, aesthetic to it in terms of the overall kind of design, right? There you can see, of course, part of the block. And there we can see it's one of, our Dash I boards. One of the hallmark signs right there when you talk about our mini ITX boards is this is where the kind of the M.2 SSD is right here. There's the ROG. Here you can see your actual DIMMs. Here you can actually see the water block. This really nice bend right here. And of course, these fittings, which go right up into then the top, right? This is really taking some kind of care and consideration in terms of kind of planning this all out. Very, very cool. And then you can see we still have to have some functionality, right? So we need to be able to get physical connections. So you can see here the I/O has been exposed. He's even got the wireless connected. It's all nicely managed in terms of the cables and everything like that, right? And then, of course, it's all wired in. So still has, you know, functionality and accessibility in play, right? So let's head back out there to that primary shot right here. And again, I think this is really a cool and different type of build. Fantastic to be able to see just kind of this type of creativity from the PC DIY community. So this is why we like doing the, of course, PC DIY Builder Spotlight, because I love to be able to show off just these different types of approaches that, you know, builders have. So let's go ahead and take a look here and see what we've got for him in submission form. So not his first build, I would expect that. Does the build have a theme? Lizard Labs. What are 3 words to describe your build? We've got strange, lab, and tube. Does the build have a name? Liz Art Lab is the name of the system. So the case, wow, this is really amazing, right? This is 100% designed from scratch, right? So that's really, really awesome. CPU, it's a Core i5 9600K. He's then got a mini-based graphics card in there, GTX 1070. He's running this on an ROG Strix Z390-i gaming motherboard, 16 gigabytes worth of RAM, and then a 1 terabyte 970 plus drive. And then that's all running off a 550 watt Seasonic Platinum power supply. So EK momentum in terms of the monoblock. So the monoblock is kind of cool. If we go back here, guys, let's see if we can go back to this shot. So you'll notice this, but see if there's a little bit better shot. Yeah. So this is a monoblock. So this is a little bit different than just a CPU block, because EK is a great partner with us where they do these more specialized blocks where this actually covers the VRM and the CPU simultaneously. So he's getting coverage for both the CPU and the VRM in one block. So that's what he means by he's got a monoblock that's in there. He's got a Biskey block for the actual GPU, which has also been modified. The res was custom made by him. Specialized radiator, which he repurposed. Got some Noctua fans that are on there. And then another fan, Cooler Master fan, ARGB. Some Alpha Cool hardware there for kind of the pump and filter, and then some other kind of miscellaneous items. The liquid is a Mayhem green UV, so I was right in terms of that. And it's actually a mixture of water and oil, all played around in there that gives it that kind of effect. So budget was around $2,000. He was most proud of the rad restoration, which that's all this stuff down here, which is just, it's amazing that he did that. Anything that he would like to change, he'd like to upgrade the GPU. Took him about 8 months worth of work. Predominantly plays just a few games on here, some stuff playing Doom Eternal and Cyberpunk. And his favorite thing about the build, his favorite kind of experience and function is that Z390-i board, where he just loves the kind of features and performance and functionality it gave him. Carl, my proverbial hat goes off to you. This is a stunning build, and definitely a fantastic overall just build. It's a great piece of, I think, engineering and kind of ingenuity and creativity, man. Kudos. Very cool, and happy to be able to showcase it here on our PC DIY Builder Spotlight. So let's get ready to go into our next build here. And again, if anybody has any questions, feel free. I will pop back over into the comments in a little bit to check out and see if we've got any other questions in general. So don't worry, if you've got those, feel free to go ahead and ask. All right, next up here, we've got a really great build from a friend and an amazing just moderator and admin that we've got in our PCDIY group, and that's going to be from Engine PCs. They did a really awesome build in one of our new Z690 series boards, and I want to be able to show this guys off. So let's go ahead and load this guy up here. So give me 1 second here, get this loaded up. All right. Okay, very cool. We've got this loaded up and got our images here. All right, let's take a look here. So this is the Windbot. This is a really cool build. I really like, there's a lot of really cool builds this week, guys. But I really love kind of the ingenuity and the creativity here to be able to kind of work with a different chassis. I think that's one of the hallmarks too of Engine, is that kind of the way that they approach kind of just not necessarily just following the normal design convention, but doing things a little bit differently here. I love the color play that we have here within there. And this, of course, chassis from Inwin is a fantastic kind of just non-traditional approach. And I think he really, really did a great job to be able to kind of make it look and feel like what he's calling it, the Windbot here, right? Something that kind of is cohesive in terms of being kind of like this machine, this robot that's got different things kind of going on into it. And also not having, I think, a purposely singular color scheme to it. You know, there's a lot of nice color play in here. This is evocative, I think, in some really some cool ways to kind of throwback to ROG, where we had for quite a number of years, we had ROG kind of have a tricolor color scheme where we had black, red, and white on our motherboards. And this kind of threw back to that. This actually used our formula motherboard. So our new Z690 board, which is in white, which is the first time we've had a white motherboard in the Maximus series lineup. And so really, really cool way to show that off. So here, of course, we can see elements of the formula board with that beautiful, of course, shroud or armor that's on there, the RGB lighting. We can see this really nice gradient colors that he picked here with white, black, and gray to be able to go along with that. Then, of course, you've got the red for the fluid. And then, of course, even this, I love these little details right here where we've got the EK block, right, illuminating the red, just kind of add a little bit of this kind of robotic kind of feel or vibe to the system. Of course, EK hardware throughout this build. Like the saying goes, for me, EK and ASUS are better together. I think this is a fantastic shot right here, which just shows you a lot of the really cool way that everything is laid out with some really creative kind of bends and runs in there. Just an entirely different kind of approach that he went about going here. Hey, Andreas, I just seen your question. I'll try to get to your question right there. You might have to repost it there so I can actually take a look and see what your question was there. But very, very cool. So again, we can see right here, this was even kind of an interesting choice. Check out, he went with 2 sets of dims, right? So he went with black and he went with white, right? Which then complements what was done here in terms of the custom cables. But then you totally break that apart with then going with the transparent tubing right here, which is of course going to be with the red coolant and fluid. And then of course you've got your black lines there too, right? So really, really cool. And the thing you guys might not even realize is that this was damaged. This chassis was damaged. And so he had to go through customizing and working with it to actually kind of tweak it and get the hinge and everything working correctly. And it doesn't look like it's, of course, not functional, right? Which is fantastic. Of course, here we can see the integrated pump and then reservoir right there, all this kind of tuned in. And this is where this is a challenge because the build has to look good from both sides because it's spherical, right? So you got to make it look good, right? If we go back, you got to make it look good from the front, from the side, from everywhere where you're looking at it. So this is always going to be a challenge because you've got to make it visually interesting enough and cohesive so that it doesn't feel off. So a lot of credit right there. We've got our ROG Strix power supply in there in white, which looks beautiful, of course, with those cables. Got those Vadar fans in there. Very, very cool. Overall, fantastic build. You know, this is just a great, great, great build, man. Kudos. So let's go ahead and take a look here at our submission form and see what we got going here. Did the build have a theme? There was no direct theme except to accentuate the moonlight white board. He really liked to kind of bring in a little bit more of a organic feel to kind of the look and feel for this system. 3 words to describe the build: spherical, XGPU, and polarizing. I think I would agree with that. Some people might even go like, what am I looking at? But that kind of sometimes has a point, right? You know, I think these builds can be art and they can be an interesting way to look at systems, and not everybody's going to like everything they see. But if there's a purposeful design that's present, that kind of reinforces where you may like it or you may not like it. But that also means that there was something that was really bold and clear and focused in terms of its presentation, right? Name of the system, the Windbot. Hardware here, we've got Core i7 on there, latest gen, 12th gen Alder Lake, so 12700K, 64 gigs of RAM, DDR5, and this is running on a Z690 formula board. Got an ROG Strix G series power supply, and then a Strix 3080 card in there. So very, very nice set of hardware. What is he most proud of in the build? The X-shaped tube run off the GPU. I agree. He's never seen anything like that, and I would agree. I've never kind of, I think, really seen kind of an approach like that to it. It's really nicely done. Let me see right here. This was the first build featuring soft. This was the first time he did soft tubing, which is crazy because for me, that's my preference. Maybe just because it's easier and simpler and still does the job, as opposed to a lot of the pros, which are now focusing only on hardline. But I'm a big fan. But this, again, I think shows you the flexibility that when you've got a great builder with, you know, creativity and focus and commitment, that you can have a great experience, you know, with soft tubing or hard tubing. Second most proud is making use of the damaged Windbot and restoring its functionality. Anything that he would change about the build, the final result is that he was really satisfied with it. Had to be reprinted twice due to the original designs not being too aesthetically kind of in alignment with what he wanted to have done. But overall, he's really happy with just how it ended up turning out overall. About 80 hours worth of work that went into this, and this will be a dedicated system for VR gaming. So Half-Life Alyx, Beat Saber, and a few other games. So overall, pretty cool. He's a big fan of ASUS's Q-Fan tuning technology. Just being able to kind of manage and control all the fans and be able to target and dial everything in terms of fan curves and get that all dialed in. So that, along with, of course, all the features on the formula board that are so water cooling centric, it really allows for a great experience. So William, Engine PCs, man, thumbs up. Fantastic build. Great job. All right, guys, so let me get ready here to, let me just check and see if we got any comments, and I will get ready to jump into our next build, guys. We've got even some other amazing builds. We've already had just some absolutely stunning builds, but we will keep moving this along. So give me 1 second here. Interesting. If he threw orange and white and light gray, yeah, I think, you know, maybe he wanted to. I think because, you know, we also helped to work with him in ROG. You know, one of the hallmark colors really for ROG since its inception has been red. That was part of the reason why he went with that. But definitely, I think when you talk about color, there's always going to be sometimes a biased preference, right? Some of us might like a fuchsia or pink or purple, or we might like blue. Or personally, for me, one of my favorite colors is yellow and orange. So I would agree. I'd love to see that. But I think thematically, in terms of wanting to do something in collaboration with ASUS and ROG, red was where it was at. Andreas, I don't actually think our TPM module is discontinued. I would recommend you send me an email, pcdiy@asus.com. With that being noted, right, TPM isn't really that relevant on all of our current generation motherboards because they utilize firmware level TPM controls for Intel and AMD based platforms. So for users that need to have access to that, they just toggle that function, whether it's going to be on an Intel motherboard or an AMD based motherboard. We still do have CSM models that do have dedicated TPM headers and that will utilize TPM based modules. And we still do produce those modules for those CSM based units, but not all e-tailers will carry that because those are more commercially focused SKUs as well as commercially oriented accessories. So hopefully that answers your question. as far as Windows 11, it's a little bit hard for me to just kind of see it right through the running information there. But again, all of the motherboards that we have that have released a Windows official 11 UEFI release also are linked into supporting that firmware level TPM functionality. So that would allow you to essentially be able to install Windows 11 without any issues. Hey, Joseph, Hazel. They're like a hazel, dark brown, something like that. Yep, I definitely agree. The colorway was nice. So let's go ahead and take a look at our next build. I think this is going to be Blade Fury. So let me see right here. Or actually, is it Mark's build? Hold on one second, guys. Oh, no. Okay. Next is going to be the Fractal Design Industrify from Mark. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at this guy here. This is going to be definitely a simpler build, but you know, one of the things I love here in terms of the PC DIY Builder Spotlight is we show off builds of all types, right? Not everybody's going to be doing custom water cooling and high-end systems like that. So I love to be able to show off a breadth and depth here. So we've got a Fractal Designs Meshify, but it's called the Industrify here because he's got a little bit of a different approach in terms of what he did here. So let's take a look. So here we've got it with the RGB lighting off. We can see right here, I'm a fan already because he's got some nice Noctua hardware in there and brown. I know some people don't like it, but I'm actually a really big fan of the black and brown combination. I do like that design aesthetic. This is quite packed in there. I really think that visually this would look stronger if the GPU was horizontal because it would allow you to see more of the styling and the accents from the board. This nice actual brown cabling along with some other items right there. I also think that probably for the performance of the system, unless we were going really high end, you could have actually probably gone with a slimmer rad. You didn't necessarily have to go with a thicker rad, but you know, there's definitely, it's not a negative because I'm assuming that you've only got this one rad for both the GPU and for the CPU, which is entirely fine. I know there's a lot of people out there is like, you have to have dedicated rads, and that's not the case. I can tell you I've got a primary system that I run that's Threadripper, that's a one rad that covers the GPU and the CPU. It all depends on your workload. So we can see we've got our Noctua fans in here, Strix Series board. But again, I do think I would prefer to see this just because aesthetically, I think it would be stronger. It had more depth and dimension, but it's not bad. Lit up here, I think we definitely have a stronger look when it is lit up because we see that there's a little bit more kind of dimension and contrast that we now have in place. So let's take a look here at Mark's submission form and see what we've got going on here. Okay, this wasn't his first build. Of course, this is not a sponsored build. His theme was black and brown Noctua industrial PVC color scheme. And I do think that, you know, now knowing that he says that's part of his theme, that makes sense that we've got the brown right here, right, to tie into the brown onto the inside. That definitely makes sense right there. Okay. Build have a name, Fractal Design Industrify C. He's got a Core i7 8700K in there, 32 gigs of RAM, an M.2 SSD and SN750, along with a WD Blue, GTX 1080. It's a Strix card in there, an ROG Strix 1080, along with an ROG Strix Z370-F gaming board, and that's all inside of that Meshify C chassis that we've got in there too. Got the Noctua, of course, IPPC-based fans in there. That's running off 750 watt power supply. It's got some custom brown extension cables in there, of course, to tie that in there. And then he's got the Biskey blocks that are going to be for the water cooling that he's got set up in there. Overall, I think it's like I said, it's a cool system. I think I would probably just maybe change that up a little bit in terms, like I said, of the positioning, but it's still nicely done. Budget in terms of the build, got about $3,000 budget. He's most proud of the just kind of getting it all together and fitting it inside there, which is it's just a testament. This is a very cramped chassis to fit everything that he's got in there. So kudos in terms of just putting in the effort and the patience to get that all working. So is there anything that he would change? He would change it completely. After his master's degree in computer science, he's slowly buying essentially hardware piece by piece and looking to ultimately be able to build a brand new sleeper project in the not too distant future. So hopefully he can get that build in the not too distant future, man. Best of luck to you in that regard, and man, congrats in terms of your master's degree. Took him 3 years in terms of just getting all the hardware together to be able to build this. And this, I think, is a kind of testament to a lot of us in the PCDIY community that our builds sometimes don't happen happen right away, right? It can take us a really long time from saving money, time, and effort to be able to get everything that we need to just be able to put together our systems, right? He uses this mostly for programming and also for computer science. And when he has free time, he does enjoy some gaming sessions. He loves it sounds like the UEFI options that we have within the ASUS firmware environment. And then just being able to quickly be able to boot because of the UEFI options in terms of booting, because he's got a dual boot environment. He runs Windows and he's running a Debian. So he's running a Linux-based distribution as well. Overall, man, Mark, kudos on the build, man. Best of luck with it, man. And thanks for being a part of Team RG and Team Strix. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at our next build here. Give me 1 second. All right, and next build we've got is going to be from David. Yeah, so this is going to be Blade Fury. All right, guys, let's take a look here and see what we've got with Blade Fury. And let me just see if we got any questions there. All right, so let's take a look at this guy. All right. So here we've got a little bit of a master shot in terms of the overall setup. Very nice, very clean, nice desk. It looks like an ROG. I think that's the ROG sheath right there. Not quite. It's got the Helios and an ROG monitor. We got some Star Wars and some Gundam going off. Very nice, very nicely done. Very clean. We can see we've got a bit of a comic fan there with some Spawn. I love that he left the Helios here. He didn't put RGB fans. Some people will put RGB fans in their Helios, which it looks cool because you still have the tempered glass, but I like being able to see the pattern finish without any type of kind of other accent colors there. So I think that looks pretty cool. Yep, we can see right here, he's got the Gladius and he's got the Falchion. So he's rocking the same combo that I'm rocking right here, guys. So it's got good taste right there. And then we've got an ROG series monitor. It looks like one of our Swift monitors right there. Okay, so let's look here. Okay, so we've got the Helios in here. We've got a Thor series power supply. I can see here we've got an ROG Strix current gen graphics card. So this could be AMD or NVIDIA. We've got the Ryogen cooler in there. That's the first gen G-Skill memory. And he's got a crosshair motherboard, so we know this is going to be an AMD-based build. And then he's got the Barros right here. So this is one of the actual info panels displays. So this is going to be pretty cool once this is actually all lit up. Let's see what we got. Oh, bam, there we go. Look at that. That's pretty cool, guys. I'm digging that. So here we've got the red. Now this is one of the little thing. It's maybe you don't notice this LED because, of course, when he's got the panel and everything on there, you might just get the illumination. But I might tweak this to maybe be where it's angled inwards to just give me a little bit of reflection as opposed to directly seeing the LED. But I like the illumination right here. He's got the actual Aura Sync all going on with the red lining. I'm always going to like a classic red and black color scheme when it comes to ROG setups and hardware. I think that looks great. I love that we can still see the ROG right here. The Strix card looks great vertically. I'm still going to have that preference that I'd love to see this horizontally because I think you have a stronger visual with the light bar. And I think it would also be easier to be able to see the OLED Live Dash display right here. But this is still a great looking setup. And of course, having the stat panel right here is really cool. It just gives the machine and the build kind of another vibe to it. The Blade Fury, right? Nice little angled shot there, that GPU. Yeah, and see, this is where I was also saying, like, you miss this whole little bottom portion. You can't even see this when the card's kind of vertically oriented, and that beautiful light bar that's all right here, right, which could be a really cool kind of just design accent is missing. But the way that we do have our cards designed, we use that light bar to give you a fill light effect, so you still get this lighting that's present here, here, and here. So it still looks really cool. And I'd love to. What do you guys think? Do you guys like this setup, or do you think you should have tweaked it? I think it's fine this way. I think it looks very cool. It's very clean and well done. I give him a lot of credit here in terms of just getting all the cables and everything managed in there very cleanly. And actually, you can also see right here, he's got a DIMM.2 add-in card. So this is the Extreme board that he's running in there. Oh, we included the cable management. Props to you, man. You included the cable management. Actually, let me make sure that I'm get your call out right here. So give me 1 second. This is Blade Fury. David, you gave us all the actual accents. So this is cool. He actually included here his cable management. This is the actual included fan and ARGB controller that comes in there. This is also then the controller that's already in the Helios. He's got that all wired in really nicely, taking advantage of the extra space. Really tightly, cleanly done here in terms of that. So credit to you, because you showed off the work that goes into making sure that everything looks clean too. So nicely done. It's a cool looking build, man, and a very nice setup. So let's go ahead and take a look here at your submission form. And let me see it here. Hey, Med, we do not have any DDR memory that we produce. We work with pretty much all the industry partners that are out there. So, you know, Crucial, Kingston, Corsair, Geld, Patriot, Team Group, AData, you know, pretty much every manufacturer does validation with us. We occasionally do have RG certified memory that is released, but we don't actually produce any of our own memory modules. We work through partners to validate. So that's a great question. We do not actually have a unified receiver. Each individual one is paired to its own receiver. So if you did essentially have like a mouse, like the Gladius 3 and the Falchion, each one will come with its own respective receiver. So you will have to plug both of those in. We are looking maybe that in the future, but as of right now, no, there is no unified receiver. So you can't run one receiver to both devices. To be able to keep the best overall range, stability, performance, and latency, they utilize essentially separate receivers. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look here at David's submission form. Not his first build. Build have a theme, ROG, all ROG build. The name of his system is Blade Fury. Let me see here in terms of his part list. So he's running a 5950X. So this is a beefy system, right? 32 threads, 16 cores, ROG Ryogen. His Crosshair 8 Extreme that he's got on this system, 64 gigs of memory, 3600 CL14, and he is running, wow, he's running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 2 terabyte M.2 SSDs and Samsung 980s. So he's got a total here of, that's right, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 terabytes of high-speed PCIe NVMe storage. Wow, impressive. And he's running an ASUS Strix 3090 graphics card, the OC model in there, and a ROG Strix Helios chassis, the Thor 1200 watt power supply, and then he's got that PG35VQ 35-inch ultra wide, right, that he's got in there as well. And then he's running that ROG Falchion and then the Gladius 3 mouse. So that is a serious ROG hardware. And of course, with all that hardware, you were talking about a premium system, over $10,000 total cost to him. Aspect is just overall the quality and the performance of the system. Nothing that he would change about his build. Took him about 6 months because of just being able to get all the parts together. He uses this pretty much first and foremost for gaming, Civilization, Age of Empires. Dude, we got to play some Age of Empires. Age of Empires 4, right, just came out. Cyberpunk. And his favorite feature is Armory Crate. It's easy to be able to synchronize all the lighting and just be able to take care of everything. So fantastic, man. I'm definitely a fan of what we got right here with Blade Fury, man. Very, very cool build. Thanks for submitting it here to the PCDIY Builder Spotlight, man. All right, so next up here, let me see what we got, guys. We got a couple more, and we've got some builds that are truly, again, going to the next level status right here, because we had some amazing submissions. And again, if you guys want to submit your builds, all you need to do is join the PCDIY group and just go to the announcement section and drop us your submission for your build. So next up, we've got one from the one and the only PC Works, Mr. Timmy Parker. I think this is the first time that we're featuring his work here on the PCDIY Builder Spotlight. And for me, that is awesome because next level work that we've got right here within this build. It is just a stunning system. So let's take a look, guys. All right, we've got Project Creator right here. So, oh, wait, let me actually go back. I jumped the gun there. All right, here we go. Wow, this is just different. I mean, I'm loving just the approach that was done right here in terms of just having kind of depth dimension and having, I think, an entirely different kind of just feel in terms of the system right here, right? So we can see that we've got this tubing. We've got, of course, the distro integration right here. We've got our board that's there, right? And you've got kind of this multi-layered, almost kind of this waterfall effect of depth and dimension, which I really like. Now, of course, this is all black, and this is the reason why I like to be able to get different shots in terms of asking for illuminated and not illuminated, because when you have it viewed from one perspective and then you flip into another perspective, it totally looks really different. So let's just see how this evolves. On the other side right here, we can see all the work that, of course, you have to manage in terms of the cable management, tubing integration, of course, running out into your distros, your blocks, if you're accounting for things like drain ports and things along those lines. This just touch right here, which is fantastic. I love the soft tubing approach, right? And this is just a beautiful looking shot right here with, I love this kind of softer color, right? Which contrasts against the black with the tint and then the illumination. So you've got this just beautiful looking system, but there's so much more going on kind of at its core on the inside once you get inside of this system, right? And here we can see once it's illuminated, and this is just stunning. So one of the things I love right here is that this is one of our new Z690 boards, and you can see that you've got this beautiful effect from the new type of RGB lighting designs that we've got, which give the system a very different feel than what you would traditionally see. So this adds just a very different kind of dynamic to the system. And once the lighting comes in, you're seeing how that hits, of course, the brighter accents on these hardline tubes versus, of course, the matte that you have here on the soft tubing. And it's really cool. I love that. And I love that we've got all this depth and dimension that's coming on within the build right here. Hey, Kevin, I'll check on your question there in a second for B550F, but all of the B550 series have been updated very recently with new AGISA updates, including the patch C release. So that's been very recent. So there hasn't really been any large scale updates from AMD beyond that. And that board series is very mature. So there shouldn't generally be the need to kind of be updating further, but I'll definitely double check that in a moment. So here we can take a closer look at this other alternate angle, and we can see just that beautiful design down here at the bottom with the RGI, the dimpling finish right there, and of course that display that's in full effect. And I just love the accents that we have in here. Really, really nicely done. This cable choice too, I think, is really nice too, with giving us a point of accent right there within kind of the silver, but then keeping this black on the other side to kind of blend in with the rest of the other black accents that we have. And there we've got just this pulled out shot here that I think just looks fantastic. Could have been a Thor that would have been in there, but I almost think that actually kind of going with flat PSU maybe even works a little bit better than actually seeing something that might have had the actual display. But I don't know. I could go either which way about that. What do you guys think? Do you think that it should have the ROG Thor that's in there versus what we have? But I think this is just stunning. I love the way that this looks right here. Just the overall design. This also interesting shows you how the display that we have on our motherboard, depending on the angle, the lighting has like almost a reflective chrome appearance as opposed to then being able to see the actual LED display, right? So if we go back, you can actually see the LEDs right here versus you can see in this shot, they're angled and they're almost like reflective, like a mirror. Really, really, really cool. Let's see right here. So PC Works, Mr. Parker's build. Let's take a look and see what we got here. So this was a sponsored base build. He wanted to base this off of a high-end car was kind of the focus right here, which I definitely think you can see that kind of feeling in terms of like pistons and gears and, you know, tubes and all these different things routing, like almost like there's an engine right at the core of this thing that's working to be able to produce performance. And that's what you definitely have. I mean, you've got, you know, a pump, a res, a radio, you got tubing, and that's all working in concert with, you know, high level wattage components, right? So it's definitely kind of in alignment there. The case is custom painted. It's actually a Porsche pink color, and the lighting and the tubing gives you the feel of an engine. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Let me actually go back there to that. I did not know you custom painted that, but that makes sense because I did not know that. I didn't know that InWin had this color, so that makes sense. Beautiful paint job on there. It looks great. I think that looks stunning. I really love that contrast too, in terms of that color with the black. I think it really goes off well. 3 words to describe the build: clean, aggressive, and functional. Name of the system is Project Creator. And let's see right here, core components right here is we've got the Z690 Maximus Hero. And that's also a RTX 3080 Ti. And this is in an Inwin 925. And then it's pretty much all EK water cooling hardware. About $8,000 total cost in terms of the system. He's really proud of the tubing and the lighting in the build. He didn't want to overpower the build with too much lighting, and I think that he hit it on the head. That's right. We just have these focus points of lighting to help to provide illumination, but you still are playing with the contrast, right? You want to have dark parts be dark and then help to illuminate those areas and also kind of hide things, right? And this adds to play depth and dimension that's in there. So I think he did a fantastic job in that regard. The fans were set to the inside of the radiator mounts to give the case a nice glow, and the tubing is in parallel loop that starts off with the nickel-plated brass and then moves to the black ZMT tubing. Yeah, and that brass and that ZMT tubing, I think, just helps to really tie in the entire theme of what he was looking to achieve. I really wanted to get time to do a custom plate on the back of the case to cover the cables and essentially have a very clean kind of cable management view, but there was only 2 weeks to complete the build. So that's something that he would like to change if he could. Took him about 2 weeks to complete. Impressive, man. And the build was part of the Intel Creator Challenge. I think this was actually streamed. You guys can actually probably check this on, I think, Intel's Twitch. I don't know if it's on other places, but I think, yeah, this was part of like a live build that they did. And his favorite feature overall was just kind of the board's design and feature set and functionality. He just being able to have pre-access to the board and kind of the design, the aesthetic, and the feature set. It's just a beautiful board that really gave him a great platform to be able to work with and be able to have, be the foundation for this high-end water cooling experience. And definitely the Hero is, I think, a perfect board for the water cooling enthusiasts. It's got those dedicated water cooling zones headers. It's got extensive fan control connectivity. It, of course, has so many specialized options which complement performance tuning with differential dye-sense monitoring. Of course, AROC technology. It really is, I think, the overall best choice for so many users out there. Of course, if you move up to other boards like, the Formula Extreme, they're, of course, going to also be great, but really, really great choice. And I think a fantastic build, man. So you did it. Thumbs up, man. I really do like this build. Very, very cool. All right. So let me take a look right here and get ready to move into our next build here. Like I told you guys, this week, just amazing builds that we had that were submitted. It's hard for me to, just pick a couple because they were really just some stunning, stunning builds that we had to go with. So next up, we've got Alex. This build here, that's going to be Alex Prus. Prus. And his system here is going to be Heat Killer. All right, so let's take a look at this guy. Again, let me check to see if there's any questions right there. Thor is life. Kevin says yes that that he really likes seeing the Thor. I would agree. I think the Thor would have maybe just taken it a little bit over the top, especially maybe the new Thor 2 series, right? Which even has that kind of really cool silver accent, but also in the right angle. It also almost goes black, and then it has the kind of smoked out display on there that I think would have really looked really good in there. Yeah. Correct. Yes, Kevin. Last UEFI release was from that time, but that's the last major UEFI release from AMD from their GISA. And if you look, that board has probably already had upwards of almost 20 UEFI releases. I don't know what your specific concern or question is. Feel free to go ahead and post in the PCDIY group, or you can email at pcdiy@asus.com. But it's a very mature board. We have many users that run that with even prior releases, and there's not an issue. So again, I'm not sure what your specific reasoning is on why you want to update the UEFI or what you think you're attempting to resolve. But again, if you can provide more feedback, then that would be great to help to kind of better understand why you're actually looking for, I guess, a UEFI release, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look here at Heat Killer. Okay, so oh wow, this is a really, really interesting and cool looking build here. Wow, I love the color play that we've got in here. Very similar to what we saw with Project Creator, right, where we've got contrast here, right? We've got this beautiful satin kind of tubing that's in there, and then we've got the black that's playing in there, and that gives it an inherent contrast. I'm loving to see what we're going to have here in terms of adding some colors, right? Are there going to be something in there that brings us additional contrast? Now, this is one of the things that's always challenged about the this chassis, right, is that it doesn't really have a strong front identity. So it really is, I think, best looked at from the side profile as opposed to the front, where this is still very cool, but it really is not like a defined chassis where you have a front facade, which helps to define a more kind of cohesive look and feel at different angles, right? Wow. Lot of cable management that we've got worked in here, and there's no way to escape that you've got just a ton that you have to work with. And I still think actually that's quite well done in terms of managing everything that's in there. You know, the only thing that I would probably have done, and this is just me, which I don't see in a lot of the professional guys that do it, but I would have probably added maybe some small little some hook and loop fasteners that might be color coded that wouldn't be exposed, so that I know where those lines are running to, just so I know that. That's just a personal thing for me when I'm going into a kind of a build, but still it's all nicely packed in there and integrated. And so it looks like we've got some other kind of the connectors down here at the bottom, right? Oh, wow. Oh, this is really cool. Okay, yeah, no, I really like this. Alex, amazing job here at playing around with colors and positioning with your colors in the right spaces. So I love that we have just these little points of color accents on the corners right here of where these bends are. I love that because it almost makes it seem like the bends have lighting that is inherent to them. But what you're doing is you're playing with reflections and the lighting. And that just adds a beautiful look in there, right? And you've entirely changed the color because now that reflection is taking on that color. And it makes it almost seem that this is a red tube when it's not. It's silver, right? Silver gray, right? But because it's playing with that red, it makes it look like that. I absolutely love that. That's beautiful. And I love that this adds the depth and dimension and contrast to the overall build, and how then we've got these areas that illuminate. So you can really see kind of the apex right here, the beautiful heat sink. We've got the dim.2 that's in there. You got your vertical card, the nice lighting right here, which is illuminated, and then these access points. This is a beautiful build. I love really everything about this. And even though you're vertical, I think it totally works in terms of the look and feel. And I love that you also kept these bends to isolate this space and allow for visibility and not kind of crowd that space out. Excuse me, not crowd that space in. Yeah, see here, this is one of the things, though, that you can see that you don't view any of that bottom portion right there, because we have the vertical GPU mount, right? Where if it was horizontal, you'd even have a little bit more depth and dimension, and you have that cool kind of lighting. But then also this does give you some space to hide certain things. So I can see the merit in kind of going this approach, and it still looks fantastic. Yeah, beautiful work here. These tubes, man, these are great. I think these are noise blockers. I think those are noise blockers. The heat killer. Oh yeah, and here, just look at it when it looks with no lighting. Very, really nice. And then this whole setup. Yeah, this is a fantastic looking setup. Really, really nice right there. Oh, and look at that. It's got an ASUS router. I think this is a tri-band right here, maybe the AC3200 or something like that. Very, very cool. This is a fantastic looking build. I love this build. This is a really, really cool build. Let me go ahead and take a look here at the submission form. Hey, Bryant, I got a, let me see, Bryant's got a question right here. Oh, and actually, let me get this up here. Sorry. This is Heat Killer by Alex. But I'm going to go ahead and quickly take a look right here. What was the question right here? So I've got a 12900K with DDR4 board, and I got a kit of 4x8 4400. So, you know, you make an interesting question. So the thing is that it's not about timings. It's not only purely about timings. For one, it's a falsehood to kind of think that you can parity make kind of consideration on low latency on DDR4, because to run even kind of tight timings on DDR4, you would be talking about voltages between like 1.5 to even up to 1.6 volts, right? Where when you're talking about DDR5 is going to be running its baseline frequency guaranteed at 4800 at whatever the timings are at 1.1. So that's one difference. And then you also have same bank refresh, which means that actually the memory in itself is actually more efficient in terms of addressing. And when you talk about frequency scaling, you also have to count that not all memory can guaranteed scale to higher frequencies when you talk about DDR4, because there's variability in the memory controller. DDR5 gives you an inherent benefit that the baseline guaranteed minimum is going to be 4800. It doesn't matter any motherboard, any CPU. If you didn't even correctly set your XMP, you could actually not even have your memory work correctly. So I think that there's a lot of kind of permutations either which way. The great thing is that 12th gen allows for you to have the flexibility. If you want to go DDR4, pair that up with one of our boards like, you know, the ROG Strix, you know, Z690-A, then do that, right? And you can have a great DDR4 experience. And if you want DDR5 and the benefits it's going to give you in terms of frequency, scaling, density, and other items, right, then you can go that route. The choice is entirely up to you. So I don't think it's a question of one being better than the other. But, you know, ultimately, the great thing is you don't have to. You can pick one or the other because both are available to you. So let me go ahead and just bring up the submission form right here. Hey, David. I think this is a fantastic looking build. I really like what was done right here. It's a really well done build. So this was actually not a sponsored build. This theme was industrial automotive, black, silver, and gray. 3 words to describe the build: coordinated, optimized, and quiet. The name of the system is Heat Killer. And let's go ahead and take a look here at kind of his core components. Core components is he wanted this to definitely have a different feel than kind of many of the other systems that use the same type of chassis, which I definitely think was achieved, right? You can definitely see that. So this is running Z370 Maximus 10 Apex and 8086, right, in terms of Core i7. So that kind of specialized overclocked enabled SKU from that generation. He's got some Team Group Extreme memory, 3866. He's got a GTX 1080 base graphics card in there, Founders Edition, that's water cooled, of course. M.2 500 gigabyte NVMe SSD. A couple of other drives that are in there as well in terms of 2 terabyte and 10 terabyte. Of course, 1000-watt power supply. No 11, but I think tailored to offer a very different perspective, which what I would agree. Noise blocker fans that are in there, the E-loops, along with some Corsair fans, Barrows fittings, and then Hardware Labs in terms of his rads that he's got in there. Coolant-based hardware. I love coolant-based blocks. They're fantastics. And also Mayhem's fluid that he's got in there. Pumps from PrimaChill, and Heat Killer for block for, of course, the GPU, which we saw, in Heat Killer for the block on the CPU, right? So very, very nice system right here. And then a wide range of kind of Aqua computer items there to be able to kind of control everything in terms of the looped configuration, which I think makes sense. About $4,000 in terms of the build. There's a sense of aesthetic cohesion, colors, angles, materials, and everything came together really nicely, and it's also very quiet. Yeah, I definitely would agree that the cohesive look is present there. He's going to be upgrading this to a Z690 Apex, and going to be upgrading to a 12900K and a 3080 Ti. Took him about 4 months in terms of start to finish. Does a little bit of everything on here: gaming, Photoshop, work from home, media consumption, and general use. His favorite kind of ASUS feature or function is the ASUS UEFI, the BIOS. Other than that, he really likes the DIMM.2 design, which is just easy in terms of adding in your, of course, your M.2 based SSDs. So very, very cool. Alex, fantastic build. Kudos. Overall, a very, very nice build and very nice job. All right, guys, I think we've got one last build here to wrap things up, and I'm going to also take a look and just see if we've got any other pending questions that have come up here. So give me 1 second just to load up our next build here, and also just double check and see if we've got any questions that have come in there. Yeah, That's entirely fine. You can definitely run that 3600 CL14. You know, the most memory modules are not going to be able to run those values, and also you have to, like I said, account for very high voltage levels. And you know, like I said, you could still actually have superior bandwidth on DDR5, and you can also still tune elements of DDR5. Again, you know, the proverbial baseline is that only the best memory kits on the market are going to be run those type of timing configurations. While again, DDR4 is guaranteeing you that. If you take a look at the majority of actually DIMMs that are sold on the market, they're actually between CAS 18 and 20. So when people kind of even bring up values that are really kind of low, they're not realistic. It doesn't mean that they're not possible, but they're just not realistic in terms of being the broadest market option. If you actually even go buy DIMMs right now, you'll find that there's quite a bit more, let's say DDR4 4000 to 4400 modules than you can find remotely on a large number of DIMMs that are C14 and C15. Also, like I said, not accounting for the fact that they run very high voltage parameters. So if you have essentially a memory controller that can scale to high frequencies, if you have the knowledge to be able to tweak and tune in tight timings, fantastic. If you can get that, that's great. But I think the fact that DDR5 was intelligent enough to be able to start off from a base frequency that for the vast majority is going to be better in terms of offering more frequency and a guaranteed level of frequency performance is something that shouldn't be overlooked, because a lot of people forget. Right now, if you even install a DDR4 DIMM onto a board, by default, the SPD profiling, the JDEC profile that it will load will probably be like 2133 to like 2400, 2666 or something like that. We've run polling, 30% of users literally don't even set XMP profiles. So they were literally running baseline memory. So that guarantees you worse performance. And for sure, that's an oversight by users, which can be resolved by just enabling the XMP. But the benefit is on DDR5, that won't happen, because even the baseline, if you put in any kit, will run at 4800 megahertz. So that's another kind of inherent kind of just benefit to the experience for all users is going to be superior as we move forward. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look here at our very last build. This is going to be just the PC from Michael. Okay, all right, let's go ahead and take a look at it here at his just the PC. Oh, looks like, hold on one second, guys. We've got a little bit of share there that ran a little bit weird. So give me 1 second to go ahead and reopen that. Okay. All right, there we go, guys. All right, so very cool. I can see already right here. We've got, I love this, overclocking time. I love that. And then we got a little ROG, little eye logo clock right there. That's cool. We've got actually an ROG Magnus, which is sweet. And we've got some other hardware laid out right here within a nice, very clean looking setup and build. So that is very nicely done. I'm digging that ROG clock. That's some custom work that's done there. And we can see right here, of course, another 011, right? But we can see, looks like we have a TUF Gaming graphics card in there. I've got an ROG series motherboard. It looks like this is probably a Crosshair series board. And then we've got the ROG Ryu, which is our other cooler, which has a screen integrated onto it, but is a circular-based design versus the Ryu Gen, which features a square-based design, right? And then we got some other nice little accents in there, of course, with the RGB fans. Looks very nice. It's cool. And here we have it with actually the lighting off. Yeah, I like that. I mean, overall, this is clean. This is well done. We've got our cables mounted running through. And of course, that's expected with the 011. You can pretty much just run everything to the back and not have to worry about anything. I personally am not, you know, I think I like a little bit more of a structured design with actually a base bottom than this kind of floating design and having your fans be exposed. But you know, it still looks nice because when you have this all illuminated, you've got kind of like this floating design aesthetic. And I know a lot of people like that. So definitely nothing wrong with that design. And overall, the most important part is this is all clean and well routed. The only thing right here is, of course, some people might say, hey, you know, it'd be nice to maybe have a little bit of a nicer cable, but this is still managed well. It's black. It's not, you know, obstructing the build in any way. So I think it works. But if you probably had a, you know, maybe a custom cable that went to the PSU for this, to be able to add a little bit of a contrast color, that could be interesting, or even complementary, right? Where it's just black and sleeved would also look, I think, very nice. And this looks, I think, really good though, right here, where you've got this nice little RGB rainbow vibe. And then with the red, that's an interesting mix. I don't know if that's my mix. I think I would rather go with something like a gradient or like a, maybe like white and then the red, or or mixing the red throughout. But I will say that having the color then can actually give you an interesting contrast and kind of coordination with this color scheme. You also might be running a mixed kind of configuration here for different reasons. So maybe that's the reason why I have it set up like that. But I actually can't think it works. What do you guys think? Do you guys like having this split color scheme set up in this way? I still think it looks good, but I probably would have changed it up just a little bit. But here we can see we've got the G-Skill memory, we've got the Ryujin. I was right, yeah, we've got a Crosshair series board that's in there right there. And then we've got here our fans that are in your kind of your classic rainbow RGB color pattern. All right, so let's take a look here and see what we've got in terms of our submission form. So give me 1 second. Load up our response here. So 1 second to find this one here. Okay, so here we got it. There was overall no theme that he had specifically in target kind of when he was going through the build. 3 words to describe the build is ASUS and AMD. Does it have a name? No, just the PC. So that's the reason why I named it that. We've got a Crosshair 7 Hero here, a TUF Gaming graphics card, but an RX series, so an RX 6800, which is pretty cool. That's an AMD-based offering there. A Ryzen 7 3800X that he has, and then a Ryujin. Excuse me, not a Ryujin. This is a Ryu. It's not a Ryujin. So this is the Ryu 240. Although he's got different fans that he has on there. 32 gigabytes of G-Skill Trident Neo that he has on there, C16, 750 watt power supply. It's got a 512 gigabyte Kingston A2000 SSD, another Samsung Evo SSD, WD Black, a couple more drives in there, 2 terabyte and 4 terabyte drives, all in an O11 Dynamics XL ROG edition. A couple of 5 of those fans, which are TT, they're Pure Plus RGB fans. And then the monitor is a TUF Gaming VG27AQL 1A. That's a high refresh rate monitor, 170 hertz, ROG Magnus. He has there too. So overall, pretty cool build and some nice hardware that you have sprinkled out there. That's a very kind of great all-around system, right? For gaming, general usage, productivity. They're about $3,400. He's most proud of the graphics card and the custom fan curve. Cool, quiet, and fast, right? So definitely likes that aspect. Anything that he would change about the build? Potentially upgrading. He would like to maybe finally upgrade the motherboard and the CPU, but he's waiting for next-gen platforms. Few hours to get the build up and running. Predominantly just use it for kind of general use, so watching movies, general documents, productivity, sometimes doing a little bit of video encoding, and sometimes a couple of games, Old Quake, Open Arena, Quick Champions. His favorite features that he has in terms of ASUS-centric items, USB BIOS flashback and memory profiles, which are tuned essentially to specific types of memory ICs, as well as also the ability to have custom OC profiles inside of the UEFI BIOS. So overall, Michael, very cool build, man. I like it, man. Kudos. Let me just see here. What question do we got? Hey, JJ, are you coming out with any new micro ATX? Can you clarify your question, Juan? What do you mean by new micro ATX? Do you mean motherboard? If you're talking about motherboard, yes, we already showed off recently that we did. Let me see if I can show it to you here. I don't know if I still have the pictures from Z690. Actually, I do. Do I have it here? Yes, I have it here. I think this is one of the best mini ITX boards that we've ever done right here, but we do have a mini ITX, excuse me, micro ATX right here. This is the Z690-G. So the -G is always the micro ATX designation. You can see very, very nice board. Pretty much has all the kind of key specifications you can want. You know, Wi-Fi 6E, 2.5 gigabit LAN. It's got our high-end audio design, which is the ALC 4082 audio components. It's got multiple M.2 SSD support, front USB Type-C, 4 DIMMs. I mean, this is a fantastic board if you're a mini ITX-based user. So we do have that board if you're interested in micro ATX. Will there be a Ryu 2? Right now, I can't confirm anything in terms of whether we may be working on something. I can tell you we are working on some next generation refreshes, even outside of what we have right now. But our focus definitely right now in terms of the new coolers is all of the models that are pretty much launching this month. So that's going to be the Ryu Gen 2, the TUF Gaming LC, excuse me, the TUF Gaming LC ARGB edition, and then the ROG Strix LC2 model. So those are all our current focus models right now. But yeah, maybe you might see something in terms of at a later date, something on the Ryu, because I know that there are people that do prefer the circular head design versus the square head design that we have. Hey, David, thanks so much, man. You have a fantastic weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy. Best to you and yours. Yeah, I think definitely make sure to take a look at that board. I think that's going to be a really great choice for you. We also do have some options that are also on the AMD lineup if you're also looking for micro ATX. So hopefully that gets you covered there. So overall, everybody, that wraps up our PCDIY Builder Spotlight. So that brings our stream to a close right here. So hopefully everybody enjoyed that. If you are checking us out on Facebook and YouTube, if you can drop us a like, follow, comment, all that good stuff, anything like that, as always, it's appreciated. And also make sure if you're interested in, again, having your build featured, if you have any other questions, comments related to ASUS PCDIY hardware, make sure to join our group, ask your question there. Feel free to go ahead and tag me. So with that, everybody, enjoy the rest of your Friday. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a great weekend. So take care. Best of luck with your builds.